Tonight, Andrea Yates, a mother on trial. She's accused of systematically drowning her 5 children in the bathtub of her Houston area home and faces the death penalty. She's pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. Her family and lawyers say she suffered from postpartum psychosis. Is Yates competent to stand trial? Can there be any defense for the killing of children? Do killings triggered by mental illness justify the death penalty? On the eve of jury selection, we'll have a live debate between Kim Gandy, president of the National Organization for Women, and conservative commentator Dave Buchanan. And I'll ask forensic psychiatrist Saul Fairstein what makes a parent kill a child and whether Yates's insanity plea can hold up in court. Good evening, I'm Wolf Blitzer reporting tonight from Washington. In the coming days, we're going to be hearing a lot about Andrea Yates. She's the Houston woman accused of drowning her 5 children, who ranged in age from 6 months to 7 years. Her trial begins tomorrow morning with jury selection. The district attorney is seeking the death penalty. Her supporters, including some high-profile women's organizations, don't dispute that she killed the children, but they insist there were mitigating circumstances. Are off the hook. That's our focus tonight. Andrea Yates, a mother on trial.
We want to elevate the awareness of the issue of postpartum depression because it affects 1 in 10 women who give birth to children.
The National Organization for Women has again created a firestorm of protest.
Now is not raising money for the defense of Andrea Yates. The Houston chapter and the Texas Now chapter have joined in coalition with a group that is referring people to the defense fund for Andrea Yates.
That coalition is planning a candlelight vigil outside the Texas courthouse where a jury will be selected Tuesday to determine whether Yates is competent to stand trial for killing her 5 children in June. The prosecutor says she should receive the death penalty.
A lot of the people who have prejudged this case and who are sympathetic to the defendant don't know the facts.
The facts are horrific. On that fateful morning, police say Yates filled her bathtub with water and then drowned her children one by one. When her eldest, a 7-year-old, resisted, she grabbed him and drowned him as well. She later called her husband at work to inform him of what she did.
Got a call from my wife, and she said, you need to come home. And I said, what's going on? And she said, you need to come home.
When she appeared in court, she pleaded not guilty, citing insanity. Before the killings, she had attempted suicide and was taking Haldol and other powerful drugs.
It's such a bizarre and monstrous crime that there needs to be some explanation, and mental illness is usually some explanation for the act.
In addition to Now activists, others have come to her defense.
Treatment for her mental illness should take priority over attempts to punish her, and believe that she and her family need support and compassion in this most desperate time.
Like Now, some high-profile television personalities, including NBC's Katie Couric, have caused a stir by informing viewers where contributions to the Yates Defense Fund can be sent. While the case is clearly igniting passions, has Now fanned the flames with its support of Andrea Yates. Joining me to square off on this issue, Kim Gandy. She's the president of the National Organization for Women, and Babe Buchanan. She's a commentator and president of the American Cause. Thanks to both of you for joining us. Kim Gandy, tell us why Now is supporting Andrea Yates.
We're taking this opportunity to get information out to the public about a tragedy that is of really epic proportions from what we saw with Andrea Yates. But I realized as a mother of 2 young girls that I didn't know anything about postpartum depression or psychosis when I gave birth. And this is an opportunity that we have to talk to women all over the country, to take advantage of the publicity around this terrible case, to get some women, mostly some doctors, to talk to their patients about this and maybe avert a future tragedy.
Babe Buchanan, what's wrong with that?
Well, what now is doing is they're trying to make use of something that is a terrible, terrible tragedy, and they are coming out and they're criticizing the prosecutor for going after Yates, this woman who is a mass murderer of her own children, going after him because he's saying this is first-degree murder and it's capital punishment in the state of Texas. He is doing his job. He is representing the 5 little innocent children that were murdered, and he is doing exactly the right thing. And for now to suggest that the sympathy belongs for the women and not for those children, I think is a real travesty itself.
We certainly have been critical of the prosecutor's decision. I'm a former prosecutor myself, and a situation like this, where there was clearly extreme mental illness involved, some of her medical records have now come out confirming what everyone told us from the Houston area about her. We shouldn't be seeking the death penalty for someone who is so clearly mentally ill. Punishment is one issue. The death penalty is an entirely different issue, and you and I disagree on that.
Kim, as a prosecutor, you know better than anyone that it's the job of the prosecutor to represent what happened there, represent the murdered victims. And what he's done in the state of Texas...
You're wrong about that.
In the state of Texas, it is clear. The law states that what the state of mind of the person was. Did they know that it was wrong when they committed the crime? And it is clear that this woman knew it was wrong. She called the police to report herself. She had a son telling her, please don't do it. She knew it was wrong. She was not insane, so he must pursue.
But you haven't been a prosecutor, because if you were, you would know that the sworn duty of a prosecutor is to seek justice,
and that is what
this
is.
Convict.
You know, Kim, what is wrong here?
Seeking justice in an individual case means looking at all the circumstances of this case, and this woman clearly was in a terrible situation, and that's going to be the jury's decision.
Yes.
What we've got to do is resist
the
urge to tie this up in a neat bow, put Andrea Yates to death, and then let the next tragedy happen, because we ignore it and we don't learn anything from it.
We did learn something.
We need to learn something
This is what
from
we need to learn. We need to learn that women, as well as men, have to be accountable for their acts.
Absolutely.
And there's depression going on across the country.
It's not depression.
I don't know.
Psychosis.
I don't know a lot of...
Psychosis is not depression.
Listen.
Don't get those mixed up, because a lot of women have postpartum depression, don't do anything to their kids.
She had help. She had a doctor within months of this murder tell her she had to go into a psychiatric hospital. She chose not to do it.
She was hospitalized
yes, but they told her she had to commit herself.
Twice.
Yes, and she knew that she was putting her children in danger by going home, and she did not go into that hospital.
Let me interrupt
she did commit herself.
What do you
That's
think,
what the reports say.
No, she did
Babe
not.
Buchanan, the death penalty in this case, is it appropriate for the...
Listen, the Texas law is quite clear, and it's been on the books a long time, and it's been applied to a lot of men, and now it's being applied to a woman, and it should be applied equally. The key is, at the moment of the murder, was she sane? It's the prosecutor. That is the question, and it is the job of the defendant's attorney to prove she was insane, and it's the job of the prosecutor who has looked at this and said all the action she's taken suggests she was totally sane at that moment. She knew, not sane, she knew right from wrong. She knew what she was doing is wrong.
Actually, that's the job of the prosecutor.
The prosecutor makes the case. The prosecutor makes the case. Chuck Rosenthal, we heard from him in the piece earlier. He says she knew precisely what she was doing, and he points to the fact that she methodically, after she drowned these 5 little kids, she called her husband. I want you to listen to what her husband said about this whole her situation. Listen to this.
My wife, I'm supportive of her. You know, it's hard because on one hand I know she killed our children, you know, but on the other I know that you know, the woman here is not the woman that killed my children.
Babe Buchanan, what do you say when the husband says this was not the wife that he knew?
Well, you know, I would say that we're going to have to see all the facts here, but he knew that his wife was having a hard time handling all those children at home, and he did not take any actions himself. Now, I do not believe is criminally responsible for the death, but he is going to be responsible because he made some real bad decisions over the years of those children. And so but he's going to live with that. But at the same time, just because he says, well, she was acting differently than I really know her, that doesn't excuse the fact that she knew right from wrong. She had a son yelling at her, please, mom, don't do this to me. She knew it was wrong. That boy knew it was wrong. She called her husband and said something terrible has happened. She called the police. At that moment, she knew what she was doing is wrong.
She did, by her own account, chase that little 7-year-old around the house, grabbed him, and then...
Terrible, terrible crime. And everything we know about this woman, she's a lot like Babe. Very conservative woman, very religious woman, homeschooling her children, full-time mother, doing everything that the conservatives say they want women to do. By every account, a devoted mother. And what that says to me is that could happen to someone else.
Kim, what you're
if we don't
suggesting
talk
here-
about this illness, and if we don't get the word out to
Kim,
people that this could happen to someone else.
Well,
Executing her,
what we
It's
have
not
here
gonna
is
solve
an
the problem.
organization that says on one hand, women should be on the front line in the battles, they should be in the operating rooms, operating on people, they should be police women and firemen, they should be able to do all of these things. But by the way, when their hormones are running differently and they have some problems emotionally and they get depressed or psychosis, all these problems, they can't be held accountable for their actions, but men are.
But the point that Babe Buchanan is making is a point that Linda Chavez, a syndicated columnist, made. Let me read to you what she says about this. Now, referring to the National Organization for Women, is pushing a double standard for justice, one for males, another for females. The male hormone testosterone plays a major role in provoking aggression, even violence. Yet we don't excuse criminal behavior in males because their hormones may contribute to their violent behavior. Should we let women off the hook because their hormones are out of whack temporarily?
Clearly this is not a hormonal issue, although I will say, and I really don't mean this lightly, that if 1 out of 10 new fathers suffered from postpartum depression, we'd know a whole lot more about it than we know about postpartum depression, which occurs in 1 in 10 new mothers. But in 1 of 1,000 new mothers, it can turn into postpartum psychosis. It's not always deadly, but it can be. It can result in suicide, and it can result in the murder of children. It happens, and we've got to talk about it. We've got to talk about why are the managed care situations putting women. This woman, according to the medical records, was put out of the hospital after 7 days.
But that certainly doesn't justify killing her 5 children.
Absolutely. There's no justification. There's no justification for that. None at all. But there is.
She was instructed time and time again that she's got to get some time off. She's got people to help her with those kids. She's going to have to because she can't handle it. And she chose not to do it. Now, she's a grown-up woman, a mother of 5. She should have put her children first and made certain she did something, got someone else to help her raise those children, or turn those children over to someone else to raise.
And there needs to be help
not
for
to.
a family
She chose.
in that situation.
Yes, listen, there's people who are raised under terrible circumstances, young kids killing other kids. We hold them accountable. We have to hold Ms. Yates accountable.
On that note, unfortunately, we have to leave it right there. Kim Gandy, Babe Buchanan, thanks for coming up to Capitol Hill and joining us.
Sure will.
Appreciate it. And up next, the crime is almost too horrific to imagine. I'll ask forensic psychiatrist Dr. Saul Fairstein how a mother can drown her children. And lawyers for Andrea Yates are pursuing an insanity defense. But do they have a case? Stay with us.
Lincoln, Mercury, and Ford dealerships offer convenient Saturday hours because your tires, battery, shocks, and brakes are working hard all week, just like you. Our quality care professionals know exactly what your vehicle needs to be at its best. Now get a Motorcraft Tested Tough battery for $59.95, making it easier for you to get an expert under the hood. Quality care service on Saturday at participating Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury dealerships.
There is a venture capitalist out there with hundreds of millions of dollars for technology firms. Startups, expansions, firms with new ideas, all in a friction-free business environment. Why would a venture capitalist work this way? Because they're convinced that technology is a can't-miss investment, and they'll do whatever it takes to help companies succeed. Who is this venture capitalist?
Pennsylvania.
America trusts America Online to make everything easy.
It's just real simple to keep in touch with AOL.
Oh, I love hearing you've got mail.
Instant messages are so much fun.
And now AOL makes it easier to get health information with WebMD.
I discovered WebMD.
WebMD is America's leading source of health information online. Communities on everything from diabetes to weight loss.
Love the chat room.
A site that I trust.
AOL has got it all.
Now's the perfect time to experience America Online. So easy to use, no wonder it's #1. Call 1-800-4ONLINE.
He flew to 17 cities in 3 weeks. Flew to the top of the ladder. Flew the red-eye to catch his son's game. Who's he sleeping with? Weston. Where he touches down in the new heavenly bed. Weston. Who are you sleeping with?
says he talks to the dead, skeptics say no way. Can he really speak to the other side? An extraordinary hour with renowned psychic John Edward. He'll take your calls. Tonight, 9 Eastern on Larry King Live.
Welcome back. Andrea Yates, a mother on trial. Accused of drowning her 5 children, she's entered an insanity plea. Will that hold up at this week's competency hearing? Can there be any explanation for such an act? Joining me now from Los Angeles is Dr. Saul Fairstein. He's a forensic psychiatrist who's been involved in many high-profile trials, including the O.J. Simpson case. Dr. Fairstein, thanks so much for joining us. And let's get right to the debate we just heard between Kim Gandy of the National Organization for Women and Babe Buchanan. In this debate, you were listening to it. Who's right?
Well, I think that the former prosecutor, Kim Gandy, made some very good points. I think that it is the responsibility of the prosecutor to seek justice and not to prejudge the case. I think Babe Buchanan made some statements that suggest that she might be prejudging the case and assuming that Andrea Yates is guilty. And in our system of justice, there's a presumption of innocence, that a woman is considered innocent until she's proven guilty. The responsibility is the prosecutor's to prove that she had the mental state consistent with that of guilt in this case.
Well, how serious of an illness is postpartum psychosis if, in fact, that is what she was suffering from?
Postpartum psychosis is a very, very serious mental disorder. It's a psychiatric emergency. It requires hospitalization. It's a condition which would, in some cases, cause someone to kill themselves or kill others. It is one of the most severe psychiatric disorders. And she has had a history of psychiatric disease. She was treated for psychosis. She was hospitalized. She was on very powerful antipsychotic medications. She has had a long history of very severe psychiatric disease.
But you've been involved in a lot of trials. You've testified at a lot of these kinds of trials. Does that automatically mean she did not comprehend what she was doing? She did not know right from wrong in this particular case?
Well, that's a very important point, a very good point. It does not mean that she automatically is not guilty by reason of insanity. People who have psychosis might be sane. It's the responsibility of the prosecutor to prove that she understood the nature and the quality of her conduct, that she understood the wrongfulness of her conduct. If she was as impaired as it seems from the material we've seen so far in the records, in the public record, she may have been insane. We don't know that yet. We cannot prejudge the case because we do not have all the facts. I think in your earlier setup, the prosecutor made a very important point that we do not have all the facts yet. And when the facts are made known in court, we'll be in a better position to judge whether she was sane or insane.
I assume one of the points the prosecutor is going to try to make is that she fully understood what she was doing based on what she told her husband in that conversation immediately after the deaths, and what she told the police, of course, when she was picked up. That would be my assumption. Wouldn't it be yours?
Yes, that is evidence. The evidence is her statements immediately following, later on, but the evidence is also her mental disorder, the degree of impairment that was present, and the nature of her acts.
How do you explain, as a psychiatrist, how do you explain how a mother can drown one child, let alone 5 children?
It's not possible to explain. It is one of the most unspeakable and inexplicable conduct that we can imagine. I cannot explain it. I think that we can try to understand the degree of impairment she was experiencing at the time of the offense. But the maternal instinct is so strong that it is almost impossible to understand how somebody could do that. This will be the burden on the prosecutor, in fact, to demonstrate to a jury of 12 people that this woman had the mental state, was sane, was rational, understood what she was doing, had a sane motivation to do this kind of act. That's a pretty strong burden on the prosecutor.
And you've been involved in a lot of cases involving an insanity plea. Do you believe that the prosecutor has a strong case this time?
I think he has a case that may inflame the passions of the jury because of its horrendous nature. But I think the defense has a very good case because of the well-documented history of her mental disorder. And it's also, I think, likely that a juror looking at this will not be able to find a rational motive for Andrea Yates to have killed her 5 children, for there to be a motivation.
Dr. Fairstein, and once again, it was kind of you to join us and offer your expertise on this matter. Thanks so much once again.
Thank you, Wolf.
Thank you, and we'll have much more on the Yates case at the bottom of the hour on The Point with Greta Van Susteren. Greta will take you inside the medical records of Andrea Yates. Up next, a look at some of the day's top stories. Elizabeth Dole is set to make a major announcement. I'll tell you what insiders are telling CNN. Plus, the violent end to a killing spree in Northern California. Details when we come back.
It's coming, and nothing can stop it. More information than you've ever seen before. Today, EMC is the one place that lets you access all your information from any place. And when you can do that, there's no limit to what you can do. EMC, where information lives.
Presenting the all-new Mercury Mountaineer. With a fully independent rear suspension, it rides smooth. With a rigid boxed frame, it reduces vibration. And with available fully automatic all-wheel drive, it laughs at the terrain. The Mercury Mountaineer. At last, these canyons, peaks, and valleys have an SUV of their own. The smooth car-like ride of the Mountaineer starts under $30,000 at your local Mercury dealer now.
Okay, sweetie, on your toes. Swing through the ball, through it. Eye on the ball, hon. We're working on the forehand. Okay, let's try backhand. We'll work backhand. Okay, you just need to connect with the ball. Let's stay in the game, sweetheart. Now, don't be afraid to charge the net.
How do you plan on financing your retirement? Conseco's annuities have tax advantages that can help. Conseco, step up.
How about BobTheBugKiller.com? Yeah, whatever, Bob. xlivebugs.com. Okay, that doesn't even make sense. When am I drop a dead bug?
We make it easy to create your online identity with a full spectrum of web extensions. Your only challenge is deciding on the perfect name.
TheBugReaper.com! That's brilliant.
Create your online identity and take the steps to get a .biz, .info, or .pro extension with VeriSign today.
These Featherette accessory orders are pouring in, so she needs a reliable server now. That I can get. Why people wear this stuff? Who knows?
You can accomplish anything, even ultra-high server availability. Fujitsu, the possibilities are infinite.
It besets thousands and often without warning. But can Alzheimer's be predicted? Are there new and improved ways to determine who might develop this debilitating disease? We'll find out. CNN Tonight, 10 Eastern. Carolyn Condit is publicly standing by her man, but how does she really feel? The trials and tribulations of political wives. What's it like being attached to a politician in the midst of scandal? Greta Van Susteren gets to the point, next on CNN.
Welcome back. In other top stories, Republican Party officials tell CNN Elizabeth Dole is definitely making a bid for the U.S. Senate. North Carolina's GOP chairman says Dole will file paperwork tomorrow to run for the seat Jesse Helms is giving up. Dole is a former cabinet secretary and former president of the Red Cross. Israeli forces attacked 2 Palestinian security posts today, including this one in the West Bank. Palestinians say a police officer was killed and 4 other people were wounded. Israel says it was in retaliation for a mortar attack near a Jewish settlement. Israeli and Palestinian officials are still trying to hammer out a deal on talks tomorrow aimed at ending the violence. Both sides have agreed to meet, but they can't agree on where. Authorities say a former security guard who killed 5 people committed suicide after a pursuit and intense gun battle with police in suburban Sacramento early this morning. 20-year-old Joseph Ferguson left behind a home video in which he talked of killing even more people. CNN has decided not to air this video. Ferguson had been suspended from his job. 4 of his victims were former co-workers, including his ex-girlfriend. Some alarming figures in a new study on children caught up in the sex trade. Researchers say between 300,000 and 400,000 young people are sexually exploited each year in the United States. The study's authors say most of the victims come from middle-class homes. Up next, I'll open our mailbag. We received lots of reaction to the HBO series Band of Brothers, our focus Friday night. Many of you don't get HBO and had a key question. Stay with us.
When you travel on business, don't downsize. Amerisize at AmeriSuites. Need more room to spread out? Get more workspace and features like high-speed internet access, plus more space to unwind in a comfortable suite for the price of an ordinary hotel room. And when it comes to breakfast, don't downsize. Amerisize. Get AmeriSuites' free Bountiful Breakfast Buffet every morning. Next time, check into AmeriSuites. Don't downsize. Amerisize.
We can expect in the coming months. Is Director of Product Development, Paul Noon.
Got it. Nortel Networks is building the new high-performance internet, the wireless internet, with optical technology that makes it faster.
Overall, this has been an exciting
and more
year.
reliable.
But the next few months will mark the beginning of a new Gesundheit.
Come together.
In fact, with technology changing
over me.
There's a place nearby with everything your vehicle needs to keep going in this busy world, even on Saturday. Oil changes, brakes, tires, and more. All in one convenient stop. Get Quality Care Auto Service at Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury dealerships.
Through the headlines and get to the point with Greta Van Susteren next. Then for the interviews you'll never forget, it's Larry King Live, followed by CNN Tonight.
They say the grass is always greener on the other side.
You're a credit to capitalism, Jack.
But if you're Jack Campbell, you're about to find out the hard way.
You just remember that you brought this on yourself.
In The Family Man, this month on pay-per-view.
Good Lord. God, you're beautiful.
Order it this month on Dish On Demand pay-per-view for a chance to make your life greener. After the credits, watch for the key to $20,000 to spend however you choose and enter the Family Man sweepstakes at universalppv.net or play the online game to enter.
There's a simpler way to save for the things you want. The Orange Savings Account from ING Direct. Everyone gets the same high 4.4% rate. With no minimums, no fees, and without changing banks. It's the simple way to make the most of your money. Call 1-800-ING-DIRECT for great rates on savings, loans, and mortgages. 1-800-ING-DIRECT.
This is CNN.
Welcome back. Time now to open our mailbag. Lots of reaction to our special report Friday night on the 10-part World War II series Band of Brothers, which last night began airing on HBO. Cheryl from Florida writes this. I am so glad that Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks have done this film. My dad passed away in 1989. He would have loved this film. Those men and women of that generation, how can we ever say thank you to them? Mary from Lafayette, Louisiana. Band of Brothers was excellent and so realistic. I could not get up from my seat and just wanted more and more. But many of you, like Don in Missouri, don't subscribe to HBO and had the same question. Are there plans to put this series out on video or DVD? Don, we called HBO, which like CNN is part of AOL Time Warner, and you won't be surprised to hear their recommendation. If you want to see Band of Brothers, subscribe. But an executive does add this. You can assume it will eventually make it to video, but he won't say when. Remember, I want to hear from you. Please email me at wolf@cnn.com or go to our website, cnn.com/wolf. Please stay with CNN throughout the night. Psychic John Edward is Larry King's guest at the top of the hour. Up next, Greta Van Susteren. She's standing by to tell us what she has. Greta.
Wolf, let me give you a hint. We have an intriguing topic, and the hint is this. Stand by your man and political spouses. Plus, we'll take you inside, and you'll actually find out what's exactly in those medical records of Andrea Yates, so you can make a determination whether you think it's likely she'll be found insane or not. But it's only part of the evidence. Wolf?
Okay, Greta, we'll be watching. Sounds very good. I'll see you tomorrow night as usual. Until then, thanks very much for watching. I'm Wolf Blitzer in Washington. The Point with Greta Van Susteren begins right now.